Hey guys, welcome back. I just thought I'd do a training video now that I've done a tactics video. I'm actually going to be using two different saves. I'm going to be using my original save that I have with Sheffield Wednesday and my new save that I have in Brazil, which is my viewer save, which you can watch the progress of in. I have a playlist set for the viewer save. The reason I'm using my Sheffield Wednesday one is that I'm pretty much at a point where I'm happy with the way my squad is set up. Just to give you sort of an idea of what you want to be aiming for. To get an idea of what I mean by this is with your training, it's a very important part of developing your players and developing your team. Now, a few things to remember. With your player, the training will only move his current ability stats from one skill to another. So you might find with something like a striker, his defensive skills like positioning, tackling, marking, and that will go down, while other skills will go up. Now, the only way to increase his current ability is to give him first team football, and his first team match experience and the level at which he plays will give him more current ability, i.e. more points to then be able to move around. Now, to give you an idea, I'm going to kind of see better progression in your players. What you basically want to aim for is a good personality. You want professionalism of some nature in their personality. So things like resolute, professional, fairly professional, model professional are all good. Determined's not bad, but you know, if you could get to professional, you can. So that's one of the benefits of tutoring them, is that you can transfer over the personality of a player onto someone else, and also what are called their player preferred moves. So you can see that in, for example, this guy. He has a couple of player preferred moves. Another good example would be this guy. So if he gets on really well with the person that he's tutoring and the guy learns a lot, then there's a very high chance that some or all of those player preferred moves will get moved over to your other player, as well as a shift in their personality from whatever they were before to a more professional one, or whatever personality the guy has. Now remember, this can work both ways. Not only can it benefit a player, it can actually cause detriment to a player as well. If the person is, say, for example, lazy, and you then tutor someone who's younger, there's a very good chance that will transfer over to your youngster. So you have to be a bit mindful of who trains who. A couple of rules really that you have to follow if you're training. The person who's the tutor has to be at least of the age of 24. When the person is tutoring, his determination may raise or drop the other players. That's not always a bad thing. So if a youngster, for example, had 20 determination and this guy tutored him, there's a chance that his determination will drop, probably down to about 16 or so. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because the benefits of having the chance of these player preferred moves transferring over is probably more beneficial than a slight drop in determination. Just something to be mindful of. Just keep an eye on it. The other thing you have to be careful of as well is that the reputation of the person you're tutoring has to be lower than the person who's doing the tutoring. So that's why you have to be a little bit careful about the amount of playing time the person is getting. You want to try and tutor the youngsters as young as you can. The other nice thing as well is that they start getting favorite personnel. As you can see with this guy, it has myself, has another midfielder who's in the team that he plays alongside, one of the strikers who's in the team who scores lots and lots of goals, this guy who is, I'm not sure why, that could have been from when he was with another team, and one of the attacking midfielders. So you can see, because they have favorite personnel, they start gelling and playing well together. So I mean, even if the guy has a model professional personality, it might be worthwhile tutoring him anyway, so he can get a favorite personnel. The other thing to remember is there's some player preferred moves that can't be tutored, that can't be trained. So for example, going to the interaction is start preferred move training. For example, things like curl the ball, that can only be learned by tutoring somebody else. Probably to get a prime example of, you know, a very good kid who's been tutored a lot and benefited a lot from it, is this regen from Bayern, who from people from my stream know I absolutely love. Where is he? This guy. He gets injured a lot, but I mean, his stats are great. His value is great. And if you look at his positions, his preferred moves is just insane. You can tell that he's had a lot of tutoring done, especially when you look at this, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Tony Cruz, Michael Skib. All of these players here have influenced him some way, and because of that, he has become a fantastic player. He would probably be even better if he didn't get injured as much as he did, because he's only got 10 appearances. Now, obviously, Bayern is, sort of the type of club with the facilities that you kind of want to aim for. State-of-the-art youth facility, well-established youth recruitment, excellent junior coaching. But not obviously everyone is going to have that. In my Sheffield Wednesday save, I've got good training facilities, excellent youth facilities, excellent junior coaching, and above average youth recruitment. A lot of the youngsters I've had come in, I've only really had one who's been decent, which is this guy. He's kind of had the best potential out of all of them. Could be the next Ashley Cole. He gets on with the players that we have here. His favorite club is Sheffield Wednesday, which is good. So he's happy to stay here, which is good. He's had 8 under 21 caps. He hasn't really learned any player preferred moves yet, just because my team is slightly lacking in defenders who have good personalities for tutoring. Another thing that's worthwhile keeping an eye on is obviously their attributes going up. This guy is still quite young, so obviously you can't really get that much of a graph, but probably my prime example would be my goalie, who I got, let's see, I got him in 2020, 2021 for free. So I've had him about 6 seasons. And he's basically been playing a lot of first team football. He's had 50 international appearances. He was a wonder kid before he hit the age of 21. He's professional, which is exactly what you want. He's pleased to be playing alongside a couple of players that we have. He avoids using the weaker foot, which isn't really that much of an issue with a goalie, but still it's nice to have. If you look at his attributes, you can see because of his professionalism, strength hasn't really gone up that much, and aerobics, but it's not really a skill that they use that much. You can see with his shot stopping that it's gone up a fair amount from sort of around 12 up to, with his 1-to-1s has gone up from about 12 to 14. You can see a lot of his stats here have gone up significantly with his handling. This is the sort of progression you want to be looking for. And even things like his tactics, his communication's gone from an average of 13 up to about 19. Now he's pretty much at his peak now. It kind of changes from 4 stars to 4.5 stars depending on his the other players I have in the team, but this is the kind of thing that you want to be aiming for. And he's only 23, so he does have all his best years ahead of him. He's got a contract that's going to be with us for a while, and his value's just significantly gone up. Another player that I've seen a lot of benefits with the tutoring and the training is Lapa. He's learned a lot of the player preferred moves, so he's very good at running with the ball down the center, placing his shots. Placing the shots is the biggest one that I've seen an improvement with. He likes to run with the ball and likes to beat the offside trap, and that's complemented by the fact that he has very high dribbling, first touch, decent technique, decent agility and balance, and fantastic pace. And his composure has started to go up as well. Now, that's all well and good for players that you go out and buy. What about youngsters that are coming in and you want to set up training for them? Well, I mean, with this you can see I've only really got a couple of good players. This guy looks sort of okay at the moment, but he's going to have to work hard to get very good. And I managed to sign him for 2.5 million from Monaco recently. So what I do with the training is I actually do individual training schedules for each of my players. It sounds time consuming, but the benefits are huge. The reason being is you can basically tweak their training level as you need to. if they become unhappy with, like, for example, the workload. The other way that you can do it as well is once you get your tactic set up, like I discussed in my other video, you could set up a tactic for your central defenders, for your fullbacks, your anchorman, attacking playmaker, central midfielder, wingers, and poachers, and then shove everyone who fits in that position into that training schedule. The downside that you get, obviously, is if someone is unhappy with the training you're getting, you have to change everyone that's in that position's training, which might not necessarily be what you want to do. The other thing to consider as well is different players will need different things to improve on. So I have 3 strikers at the moment. So this guy needs different training than my other striker needs, or Lapa needs. Now, if you did want to set up individual training, what I'll do is I'll actually switch over to my other save in Brazil, because that isn't sort of your perfect situation. This might be sort of the situation you first start off with when you first start playing. Okay, so this is my team that I have in Brazil. If you change it to assistant reports, it will actually give you an overview of what the balance is like. Now, some of the players that I brought in, you can see that their ability and the potential isn't great, but their personality is the thing that I'm looking for here. You know, he's 32 years old. He's only signed for a year. I'm not really too concerned how much playing time he gets, because I want him to do tutoring for my youngsters I have. With the other players I have, a lot of them I'll bring a player in if they have a better personality than a player who might have good stats but a balanced personality, because I want to try and get as much professionalism into my team as I can. So as you can see here, if you go to the full player status, so this guy's tutoring at the moment. He has a fairly professional attitude, and he has started tutoring this guy who's going to be probably one of my defenders in the future, who had a balanced personality. And what I normally do is I just write in Notepad, I just say the person who has started, the person who's being tutored, and what his starting personality is, who the person is that is tutoring him, what his personality is, and then I just put result. So once it comes up with a message saying the tutoring is done, I can then reference back and see how much of a change there was in his personality from what it was originally. And also if he has like a very outspoken or volatile media handling style, I'll make a note of that as well to see if that has changed. And probably what you find is once the personality changes, they'll actually start learning much more. Because they're professional, they want to be the best that they can at doing what they're doing. Now, if you want to actually set up a training schedule, here's how you go about it. A lot of people ask me, well, how do you set up a training schedule? I can't move my sliders in that. So let's have a look. Let's take Steve. So Steve's like a 2.5-star player. I'm not holding out much hope for him, but you know, I'll put him on some training just to see. The way I do the individual training is click on the training tab, and if you go to training report, you'll basically have just the standard default ones that come with your game. And these are the individual ones that I've set up. If you go to the bottom, you can then select new schedule. The name, I will normally put the player's name, so Steve. And what I'll normally do is I'll have a look at a report and see what he's good at. So he's good at being an anchorman and defend, which is what I want. So if you click on the attributes tab, you have this little button here for view key attributes. You can then go down and choose in the midfield, anchorman and defend. And what that will do is it will then highlight the areas that he needs to be a good anchorman. Now the nice thing about this is it's very easy to get distracted by big numbers. Like you go, wow, he's got 13 in flair and 15 in influence and 12 in natural fitness. Well, that's all well and good, but you know, that's bonuses. That's not what he specifically needs to be a good defensive midfielder. To be a good defensive midfielder, he's going to have to improve on, in this case, his tackling and his marking, because without that, he's just not going to be able to mark a player, and he's not going to be able to tackle them. And he's probably going to get yellow cards or red cards. Strength, well, he can't really muscle anybody off the ball because he's just very weak at the moment. But he is 16 years old, so you know that's fair enough. Anticipation, he just can't anticipate balls coming into the area. His idea is to act between the midfield and the defense and cut down any attacking moves that he can. Without anticipation, he just won't be able to do it. Positioning is one of his actual better skills, if you can even say that. But that's going to need improving, that he's going to position himself in the right location to do the moves that he needs to. Decisions. Is he going to make the right decision? Is he going to tackle at the right time? Or is he going to slide in and take the guy's leg out and get sent off? Concentration. Does he get distracted easily? So all of these are important things to take into account. Now, like I said before, determination can be increased or decreased by the tutor. So the tutor that he would have, if he has higher determination than him, his determination should go up. So if I want to set up his individual training schedule, I normally just blank all that down because the training schedule seems to give you a whole bunch of average, which isn't what you want. So the way that they normally increase the skills is his physical and technical skills are sort of the first that start to increase. You probably won't notice much of a physical increase till he hits about 18, 19. But obviously if it's something urgent that you need to get worked on, then you can concentrate on that. His technical skills are going to need a ton of work. His tackling and his marking is going to need massive improvements to have any sort of chance of being at least a reasonable player or a good player. Without that, he's just going to, probably retire by the age of 18. So, the thing to remember is because it's a youth schedule, we can't go as high as a normal schedule. So, normally I'd put this at like the first notch of medium, but because it's a youth schedule, I'll put it sort of high up in light. Tactics, same thing. Like I said, that's the last thing that he learns. Ball control isn't too important. If you want to see what each of these actually affects, if you go to attribute development, it will actually tell you here, tactics, ball control. I'm not really too concerned about his dribbling, first touch, and technique, and flair, and his heading, because his heading and his flair are decent at the moment, even though he doesn't need flair. Things he needs to work on is his defending, his positioning, tackling, and marking. So defending is something that's going to be worked on a lot. Attacking, well, attacking would be nice, but he's not really going to be crossing the ball that much. Off the ball isn't really needed. Positioning is going to be more important. Off the ball and positioning are two very similar skills, except off the ball is for attacking players, and positioning is for defensive-minded players. So you'll probably find one goes up and the other goes down. You can't really have both. Well, you can have both high, but it's only really in top-end players. Creativity would be nice to have, but I'm not really that concerned about it. And the way I would look at attacking training for a defensive midfielder is, if I need to, I can just put him on individual training focus for passing, which would be something that he would need to look at. Shooting, well, shooting only affects finishing and long shots, and I don't play with long shots anyway, and he's not ever going to be close enough for finishing, I don't think. So you have a little bit of room here. Ball control would be nice to have, or else they'll get a bit annoyed that they're not training it enough. And because I have a little bit of room now before it hits heavy, I can start increasing this a little bit so it's just below heavy. I don't want to go too high up, because then the player might get annoyed, because he's not really a professional player, and I want him to be happy when he's training if he can. Now, with what's available here for your individual training focus is determined by the quality of your facilities. For example, with higher end facilities, you can teach things like positioning, but because the facilities we have here are not great, we're kind of limited on what we can train him on. I would say probably I would concentrate on, I would ideally do marking, but I can't do marking. Tackling might be a possibility, or passing. I'd probably do, see, another thing to consider as well is composure. I'd probably do composure to start off with because it's lower. I might even consider strength, but I'm not that concerned by it at the moment. And that's basically how you set it up. Like you said, it only really took a minute or so, probably even less if I wasn't commentating, because I'd pretty much just be able to go through and click the different things that I needed to do. To get an overall idea, if you go to schedules, for example, this guy who is some good potential in the future. As you can see, they're saying he's going to be a 5-star, but with the level we're playing at, I'm going to take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because that could go down. And you can see with this, I've concentrated a little bit on his strength and aerobics, a lot in his tactics, ball control, and attacking. To be honest, I might change it. He's going to be playing as a poacher. And so, obviously his tactics are something that he needs to work on, is to anticipate the ball coming into him, to be composed when he has, like, for example, a one-on-one. That is naturally going to start going up anyway. So you want to keep an eye on this. What I'll do as well is, with the news, when they come up with the training reports, like the monthly training reports on how the player has done, what I will do is, if the player isn't training well, I will go and have a private chat with them. I'll basically say, let's take this guy for example, private chat, development, training level, if you can select it. This guy just arrived at the team, and you'll just say you need to improve your first team, your training, if you want to get a place in the first team. And you'll find then that after that you won't get an issue of them not training well. And you can also have a look as well at their attributes to see what has dropped and what has gone up. If it's something that's dropped and they say they haven't trained well, but it's stuff that they're not going to use, like a striker's lot, drop points in marking and tackling, then I wouldn't worry about it. So it's all really situational. But if it's someone that looks like across the board their stats have gone down, then yes, have a chat with them. Say, look, you'll have to improve if you want first team football. And normally their happiness will go up a little bit, because they'll say, I'm not really, you're right, I didn't do well this month in training. It's something I have to look to improve on. Sometimes they'll say, I think I've done well, and you can just remind them to say, look, I'm the person that picks the team. And they go, okay, right, fair enough. It's only really once or twice I've ever had an issue that they haven't been happy with it. To give an idea of the facilities that we have here, adequate and average is the best way of describing it. It's not fantastic, but it's what we have to work with, and we don't really have the money to go out and improve it that much. So hopefully this has helped you guys on how to do your tutoring and your training. Like I said, it's very worthwhile keeping a track of players that you've started tutoring, what they started off with, and hopefully once they get sort of that professional sort of attitude, you'll notice big increases. The other thing that's worthwhile mentioning as well is players that are around the age of 18 or so, if you can start giving them first team football, they're going to improve much better. If you don't start giving them first team football, even like 10 games a season, or putting them on the bench and then bringing them on in the last 20 minutes or so, you'll probably find that they'll start stagnating. You'll probably notice that in the reports and that they'll say that they haven't increased in any of their stats because they've stalled, basically because of lack of match experience. Your ideal situation is to have everybody in your team, when you go to fitness, to be match fit or tired. You don't want needs match fitness or severely lacking match fitness. If you get a lot of players that have that, you have too many players. I normally aim for 2 players per position, and if I can get players that can play multiple positions, even better. I don't want to say I have a heavy rotation in my team, but I try and make sure the only time someone would be lacking match fitness is if they just come off of injury, and then with that I let them play some reserve games until they're back to match fitness, and then go from there. If a player is around sort of a 93 or below condition, I wouldn't start him. I'd put the other player in. The only time this can get tricky is if there's you get an injury bug. Like you get a lot of players getting injured at the same time. Sometimes you might have to put like 2 tired players in, and one plays one half and the other plays the other half. If you find that you're getting a lot of games in a row, then it's worthwhile resting all players for a day or so, just so they can recover a little bit. And also at the beginning of the season, make sure that you set your workload for very high, but drop it down to very low or low once they're familiar with the tactic. The reason this is important is if you go to the training, their workload, at the moment you can see they're spending 50% of their time on match preparation and only 40% of their time on scheduled training, as well as 10% on their individual training focus. Now if you add something like player preferred training or a new position, that's going to reduce the amount of scheduled training they're doing even more. So you got to keep an eye on how much training you're giving your players, especially if you're wondering why they're not improving as you want them to. Hopefully that's answered a few questions that people might have about the training. If you do have any questions, by all means leave a note below in the comments. Head over to my Twitch channel. I'm very happy if you want to say, what do you think I should do with this player? What do you think he's going to be? Do you think he's worthwhile getting? What sort of training would you do for him? Just, link a picture into the stream. I'll have a look at it, and the rest of the channel can discuss it as well on what we think you could do. The only information really we'd need is what sort of role you're planning on him playing, whether he's going to be, for example, like a poacher, an advanced forward, a complete forward, etc., etc. And what sort of personality he has. And from that, hopefully we'll be able to get you on your way. Same applies for tactics as well. I did mention this in my tactics video. And if there's anything else that you want to know, anything else you want me to cover, then just leave a comment below, and I'll see if I can get a video done for that as well. Thanks for watching, and